Computer. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first ever Strat Something New. I'll be honest, Aditya, I just wanted to use that name somewhere. That's why we are doing these sessions. Sometimes you just have a nice name and you just want to use it somewhere, so you desperately figure something out. Okay, thank you guys all for joining in. To be honest, we don't have any idea how this is going to turn out. Um, so myself, Deepak, as they say, Chuck is what most of the universe calls me. I am an ex-planner from a couple of agencies, including Ogilvy and Leo Burnett's Digital Wings, post which I worked in events and ticketing for a while, and now I am a full-time freelancer where my idea is to mostly optimize free time more than bank balance. A approach that has worked out okay so far. Um, I teach a digital marketing course and I do a whole bunch of other things as well. And that digital marketing course that I run, which some of you had attended as well, was actually an idea kickstarted by that gentleman who is on the other side of the screen, but we'll get into that later. So, yeah, Adi, take it away.
Okay, so hi everyone. I'm not as smooth and polished at this as Chuck clearly is. My name is Aditya Banerjee. Most people call me Adi or just Dude. I graduated from MICA in about 2017 in brand management and advertising. Uske baad I've pretty much been in advertising. I started off at a boutique agency in Bombay, and I always felt that that was a really good decision because when you're a small tight team, you got to do everything by yourself. So वो काफी सही था. Over the past couple of years, I've been with DDB Mudra, and now I'm moving into DDB Tribal, which is just trying to create a new brand or a kind of breed of strategists who don't just look at mainline but also understand different aspects of digital. And I'm fairly new at the game, and a bunch of people here are supremely impressive in the terms of the questions that you guys have sent in and some of the profiles. So I'm looking forward to seeing what's what. Outside of work, I love good daru and a lot of really good food and music.
Lovely. Do you know, by the way, Aditya, I don't think I've ever told you this. Do you know I have a published article with DDB Mudra's old something long back. I
Oh,
uh,
damn.
I wrote this really long back. You guys used to have I don't know some publication or something, and they were taking in
Mhm.
some guest article. I remember working with the head of Tribal DDB at that point of time. I
Okay.
forgot also who it was, and it was partially when I was a MICA student, and partially when I was just outside that transition when we were getting
Mhm.
out of the institute. I remember going down, discussing it with him, and putting it all together. It was kind of interesting. So I have it somewhere. It's lying somewhere over there. I think it was something like lessons advertisers can learn from rock music or something like that.
I'd be very interested in reading that.
Yeah, so would I honestly. I have no idea. I just remembered that it happened. Yes, yeah, I think it's a far better read than my thesis for sure. Okay,
Yeah.
so both of us are we have a few things in common. Clearly, we are both Micans. Or at least we both have experience in strategy. Aditya still does that, and I used to do that, and still do to some extent for some
Mhm.
of my clients right now. And interestingly, Adi, I guess both of us have had a similar-ish career path in terms of the agencies that we have. That we've been a part of. I also spent a fair bit of time in a small agency called Winchimes, and I don't regret my time there at all. I think again, like you said, small agency, you get to do a lot of things, make all the mistakes while you're, get them out of the way early in your career, and then when you're more polished, go up to some of the bigger places. So I think that
Yeah.
transition, yeah, I think it worked well for me, and I would highly recommend that to anyone who. I mean,
Mhm.
there are advantages, right? There are advantages of
Yeah.
starting in a big agency right off the bat, and I think it depends on the type of person you are as well. But I think that whole stint in a small agency served me well, and I know other people for whom that that process has uh, really worked well. I think, especially in this space, it's good to be a big fish in a smallish pond as well. I think you carry over some sort of cred when you move over to a bigger agency as well. All right, so what we are going to do, guys, is this session, hopefully, we are going to be discussing a little bit about brands and strategy and things like that, not complain about advertising all the time. Um, So we wanted to keep like when Adi and I discussed this for the first time, we had a lot of topics we could have covered, but I thought one nice fertile common ground to cover would be the changing role of digital for brands. That has to do partially with our combined experience as well,
Mhm.
and partially my own curiosity, really, because I've spent my life entirely in digital, actually by accident, because I always wanted to be in a mainline agency when I was a starry-eyed young account planning major at Mica. In fact, Mudra was my dream agency at one point of time. Uh,
Mm.
because of the recession batch, thank you, Wall Street, we were forced to take whatever we could get,
Yeah.
and I ended up getting into digital almost entirely by accident, and I don't regret that at all. I think
Mhm.
that was a very happy accident that happened. And you are in an interesting role right now, aren't you? Even though you are in a mainline agency, what you're doing is interesting.
Yeah.
Talk about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. It really is. I think it's the conversations um started about a year back, early 2020, late 2019, where we felt that there's brand strategists who understand brand really well, like how to build brands, how to service the business needs of a brand and really grow that. And then you've got digital strategists, and the brand strategists don't understand much of digital at all.
Mm,
It's a big miss where you simply think, social is just for comms, for example. And then you've got digital strategists who know the hell out of digital
yeah,
and analytics tools. They can segment on do all kinds of amazing stuff, but the understanding how to build a brand is where they fall short.
yeah.
So the experiment that was started, and it's going really well and very interestingly, is to sort of bring these two together. So to see if you can create a group of people who can build brands as well as live digital, understand digital.
Mm,
So from that point of view, it's been really cool. Even the conversations we've had with clients is that we've been looking for this, because otherwise you're talking to five different people
yeah.
who say five different things, and the agency that's supposed to bring me clarity ends up confusing me much more.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's
yeah,
interesting, man. Yeah, I think, and that's a topic that we will be speaking a lot more of. In fact, I
mhm,
think a fair number of questions were around that topic,
yeah,
right? How are either mainline planners dealing with digital, vice versa? How are agencies, clients just dealing with this whole transition and things like that?
mhm,
So I think we'll answer those questions hopefully over the course of the next 1.5 hours. So the way we
yeah,
want to do this is for the first half an hour or so, I guess, or half an hour starting now. Adi and I have sort of like chalked out three questions for each other, which we'll attempt to answer. And then from all the questions that you sent in, firstly, thank you for all of them. They were
yeah,
like really thought-provoking questions, and I genuinely mean that. I'm not, we're not just saying that for fluff. When a client asks you about metrics, and you're like, "Ah, that's an interesting question. We never thought of that." So we actually did think a fair bit about this, and we've sort of like shortlisted about 10 questions to take up, because
yeah,
I think those are the ones that will serve the maximum number of people
mhm,
who are over here. We are not going to take sector specific things. Some of you did write in, so apologies in advance. We will not be say, oh, okay, how do I do digital for this industry? So we don't want to take questions like that over here. Maybe another session or something like that, but this hopefully is going to be something that will help everybody, because like Adi said, there is a fair bit of variety in terms of who is attending over here. There are founders of
yeah,
agencies, there are current marketing students, there are disillusioned planners, there are starry-eyed young interns, I suppose. So yeah, we have to do something that caters to everybody, I suppose. All right, so Adi, shall we get started? Who you want to ask first, or should I?
I'll shoot off with one of my questions,
Go ahead.
uh, because
There's no
there's been
surprise
stuff.
because we know each other's questions and we've had time to prepare, obviously. But yeah, ask away.
Yeah. So, one of the first things that I wanted to know, and this has been something that's been on my mind as well, that, you've left the formal advertising fraternity for some time and you've done your own things. And that, of course, comes with its own set of challenges, but also it sort of accelerates the kind of learning that you've had and see things, the industry, see brands and clients from an outsider's perspective.
Yeah.
So, what are the things that you used to see planners and strategists do that you later found out to be A, a huge faux pas, and B, what are the different ways that you found in serving a brand's business needs?
Yeah, I had yeah. When you asked me this, I had a fair bit of there was so much to talk about over here, so I just tried to structure things a little. So, like I'll pick up on one of the things that you asked, right, which is what are the things that you used to see planners or strategists do that you later found out to be a faux pas. So, rather than looking at it from a planner's point of view, I'd like to actually look at it from the agency point of view itself, because I actually think that many times as planners, be it mainline or digital or integrated, I think our hands are tied to what the agency needs to do and what the agency's goals with respect to a brand are, unfortunately or fortunately. And that, I think, is a huge thing by itself, and we'll address that over the course of this session. So I think fundamentally, if you just look at it from an agency point of view, be it digital or be it mainline or indeed integrated, I think there needs to be a fundamental shift from let us solve this with an ad to how can we use creativity to solve this problem. I think that sort of mindset shift needs to happen, because I think currently the incentives are completely aligned in terms of, and I'm not blaming agencies for this. Let me be very clear about. So I'm not blaming agencies right now or individual people within. I think fundamentally there has to be a shift in terms of looking at it from okay, every year we need to churn out 2 campaigns, or every 1 year we need to do this. Or if you're a digital agency, then okay, we need to get a social media account because it's going to guarantee retainers for us. Then the incentives move more towards how do we retain this client rather than how do we do what's best for the brand. Maybe what's best for the brand might not be a retainer account, right? But it might mean that an agency might need to sacrifice short-term, say, revenue projects or whatever it is. But I think that's the only way for the industry to kind of mature. And to be honest, this is something that anyone who's been in the system has been seen coming for a while, right? Agencies over the last few years have had the rug pulled out from under them from independent strategists or consultancies, like all your like Droga 5 getting acquired by Accenture, for instance. Like agency are caught flat-footed because I think they're still operating on what used to work very well in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Worked very well at that point of time when the media landscape was different, when brands were different, and when consumer habits were different, right? Today, and it's not necessarily because we've shifted to a digital age. I think so many things have fundamentally changed that I think the way agencies need to look at it is not, it shouldn't be just like, I think what's happening right now also is they're trying to apply principles that used to work on mass media, which is TV, print, radio, and all that, and saying, oh, okay, digital has come in. Okay, digital is good at 1, 2, 3 things. So let us try to do the same things over here. Let's transpose over here. And even within digital, right, there's a fundamental understanding of how different platforms are different. So TikTok comes in, for instance, okay, if TikTok is vertical, so this is copy paste Instagram stories. So rather than understanding why that platform is fundamentally different from an Instagram, even though on the surface it looks kind of the same. So there's a lot that's kind of happening over here, right? So I'll pare back whatever I'm saying, and just it boils down to that one thing. I think agencies need to look at it from a okay, here's a client with a business problem, right? Fundamentally, if you just take it down to the basics of what advertising is supposed to do, advertising or marketing is supposed to do, right? Here's a company with a business challenge. That business challenge could be whatever, right? Growing market share or differentiation or whatever the case may be. Now, how do we solve this particular problem with communications? It may not be what has worked in the past. It might not be what has worked for another client or another industry, whatever the case may be. I think each has to be looked at separately. Some might mandate retainers, sure. But some just might not. Like I read this, or rather listened to the audiobook of Contagious, the 10 Commandments, and I was blown away by some of the examples, some of which didn't even have your traditional advertising solutions, no TVC or no Facebook ads and stuff like that. Sure, well, that stuff still works, but I was just blown away by, all right, now this is how you solve business problems with creativity, not necessarily even outpress television. Now, coming back to your question itself, which is like the faux pas that planners make. So you kind of see, right, like why I refuse to put the blame on planners necessarily, because they are also there. I'm sure many of them think that way, but I think their hands are also tied in terms of, okay, we need to win this account, or this client is doing a rebrand, and then you can't pause and say, okay, do we even need a rebrand? Okay, they say let's get on to Instagram, but does this brand, like, does this mutual fund even need to be on Instagram? Is not the fundamental question that is being asked. So I'd So what ends up happening as planners, we end up serving the PPT rather than the business. I'd like to
Yeah.
think. So that's the big faux pas. I don't see how it can be fixed at a planner level. Sure, you can make some internal noises about it, but I think it's going to be a long drawn out change. And I think
Mhm.
I think it's something that will happen over a period of time. I don't think it's something that will happen immediately. As the industry is getting its rug pulled out from under it, I think that change will be accelerated, just like how, for example, COVID has accelerated much needed change that everyone knew was needed in a lot of other industries as well. That's my
Yeah.
super long answer to your fairly simple question.
No, I really appreciate that, and I like the distinction. Where you've said that it's not just planners; it is the industry. Because we're all part of a larger system, and that system, through whatever reasons and all, it just, yeah, mostly your boss is your consumer, right? And that's the thing, that when your entire agency, or when the entire fraternity is geared towards, in broad strokes at the very least, is
Yeah,
geared towards saying that I want this solution, or I think this solution is what's right for this brand, without really getting to the problem. That's a fundamental problem. It's not something that has just crept up because of digital. It's crept up because it's an increasingly competitive industry, where you face the onslaught of the economy, of course, but even clients telling you that, what are you doing to earn your money?
yeah,
What are you doing to earn your keep?
yeah,
And काफी बार होता है that you stop serving the business or the brand, and you start serving the client also.
yeah,
So if the client says that I want to go after this target group, for example, you're
yeah.
like, okay, take it, I'll put out communication, I'll go after this target group, without even failing to see if that target group is relevant.
Relevant
Is
or
it going to be a good source of business?
yeah,
So if you've told me that you want, say, a 15% or 20% growth over the next couple of years, is it going to come on the back of this kind of consumer? It may not.
yeah, yeah,
So unless you have a fundamental understanding of the problem that you're trying to solve, and not the client or the PPT that you're trying to service, I think, yeah,
yeah.
that's a
But
very
that
important
being
thing.
said, Adi, just to like maybe satisfactorily answer your question, I think the one thing planners can do right now, be it digital or mainline, is actually be more business attuned, right?
Yeah.
Right? To speak these words. I think planners have also got themselves, and just shifting the blame back to planners for just a little bit. Um, I think planners have also got comfortable in this whole ecosystem. It's a steady rate of growth. They know they're
Yeah.
going to get their small increments every year, or they'll bounce to another agency, and same shit, different scenery, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I think the more the industry itself starts saying, "Hey, listen, we are not here just to make ads for you, but we are here to help you deliver top line growth." And
Yeah.
I don't think I've spent like enough time in advertising. I don't think I've heard the words top line growth being mentioned even once in my entire career. But I think,
Yeah.
jokes apart, I think you need discussions like that. I think you need more discussions like that happening with brand managers, with their,
Mhm.
whenever you get the opportunity with their boss. Like, we've been to enough meetings where they're saying, this is our social media agency, and the boss is supremely uninterested. These kids are doing something on Instagram, Facebook, whatever. Like, I have more important fish to fry. The moment you say something which is more substantial, which might actually affect his KPIs,
Yeah.
then you have got their attention. I think the industry as a whole, I think, needs to move towards that. It's not going to be easy, but I think that's the one thing we as planners could possibly do, or you as planners. I'm not, I'm
Yeah.
not in the game.
Now, I'm going to put a pin in that word, just business. I'm going to put a pin in that, because a lot of our questions that have come in have spoken about ROI, have spoken about what our planners expected to do today. And I think that's my point of view will definitely revolve around that. And I can see to
Yeah,
an extent yours will as well. So
yeah,
I'm waiting to get deeper into that.
yeah. Super. So let's move on to the next one, which is
Yeah.
my first question for you, Adi. And actually, I think this follows up quite nicely with what you asked. So I left advertising in 2016, and I worked with two large agencies, and they had, even then, they had a much much touted about digital focus. It was honestly just like digital was just still the last two slides of the presentation, right? We were just like
Mhm.
trophy wise that were strutted around saying, haha, look, we have digital creds. This guy knows what Instagram is. So it was pretty much just like that. It was never really
Mhm.
part of the actual strategy, and this was at that point of time, right? And mainline still used to drive everything. I'd like to think that things have changed now. So have they, in your experience and from what you see in your peer group around you?
Things are changing. I don't think things have changed completely. What I can say is that it's not always the mainline team that's driving things. And the change that I've been very happy to see over the past at least 1 year is that digital now is not just the last two slides of the presentation. Yeah, but it comes on the back of a lot of things. Everybody in the agency has to be geared towards that mindset. Otherwise, it's going to be relegated to two slides ki role of digital, build brand love, and then you have like a nice grid or something which shows different social medias that we can be a part of, with something even as broad as the number of people in that target group on that social media, which inherently doesn't make any amount of sense. And that's number one. Number two, if you aren't able to connect why you should use digital, it's always going to remain as part of the, like, just an appendix or an afterthought in the presentation, and wo dekh ke pata chal jata hai. Anybody who's going through your presentation with even a slightly critical eye or a critical point of view, especially brand managers and marketing managers who do that today, they're going to get to know that if I remove this, it's not going to make any difference. So what I really like to do is, anytime as strategists, planners, anytime in our agency, it's a very broad thing to say, but keep your eye on the consumer and see how their life is evolving with respect to digital. What are they doing? And then see how that translates into your strategy. So for example, if you're selling a product, see if you can get some stats on Amazon as to what searches are going in. If you put this in, what are the things that come just even in consumer interviews? What are the products that they're shown in more liked? What do the reviews say? Because that's consumer speak absolutely on that product, on that service. So using these really interesting places and ways as to, and not just saying that role of digital is to build brand love. Use those. There are so many free data mining tools out there. Sometimes you will need paid services, चाहिए होगा. But make use of the free ones and use that to inform the decisions that you're taking. So if you have seasonality that your media team is pointing out that at this point of time we've been spending a lot of money because we see that sales happening. Okay, great. What is the consumer doing on digital? Is there a search trend that's reflected on Google, for example? It's a very simple thing, but it helps bolster your argument. And I think that's the best thing that you can do, instead of relegating and having a separate section for digital. Stitch it into your argument, stitch it in, and take a step back and see where can I use the things that different data points, different understandings of the consumer. And one thing you said in some couple of minutes back is people just take Instagram stories and put it on TikTok. Don't do that. Like, definitely don't do that. Understand. I think one of the why is it different? And one of the things that I learned over the past year is that it's a if you think about it, it's a slightly arrogant point of view also, right? Like, somebody sitting all the way over there is not stupid that they've put in so much money, effort, time, and intelligence into building Reels and Instagram TV. Why do both of them exist? There's a reason for that.
Excellent point. Like, I am constantly fascinated by TikTok as a medium because it came at a time when everybody thought that there's no scope for another social media platform to emerge. The fact of the matter is, it was the most downloaded app in the most digitally savvy country in the world, the US. Or digitally advanced. So that means clearly consumers are finding a reason for it to exist. So which means brands copy pasting the strategy might not necessarily work. Great point. I love your point about finding using digital to drive insights, even if they're not from the expensive tools. In fact, I think that there is, many times as a planner, right, it's more about making and emphasizing a point rather than, let's be honest, necessarily saying that I did like 2 months worth of market research in order to arrive at this point. And sometimes, honestly, it could just be a couple of tweets ka screenshot that help emphasize that point, rather than saying, we went in and surveyed 500 people all across the country and things like that. And I've found platforms like, and honestly, more as a writer than as a planner, I've often found platforms like Quora and Reddit to be gold mine of quotes and information. I remember doing an article about how much photographers earn on platforms like these stock image websites, Shutterstock and things like that. And yes, I did go and interview a few photographers, but I found even more information on Quora and Reddit, where there were reams and reams of discussions around this. So absolutely, these platforms sometimes is best used to just shut up and just listen what's happening on them. Super stuff, Adi. Shall we move on to the next question, because we are 16 minutes down of our allocate. It's okay. We are planners, no? we are used to overshooting time.
The second question, I think, what I like about these questions is that they seem to all be flowing, which is nice. So, in the kind of freelance work and conversation that you've had over the past years, and especially maybe accelerated over the past 2 or 3 years,
Yeah.
what are some of the challenges or the issues that brands are facing that they have said agencies have failed to solve or they just can't solve? And what are some of the problems that you've solved which have been extremely interesting?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I've solved problems that much, to be honest. I think still very much just getting there, and how I've helped brands out is really more with a little bit of a content and just helping them with their initial strategy and stuff. And it's still very, very early days to see whether that's paying dividends. But to answer the first question, right, which is what are some of the challenges that brands are facing that they said agencies have failed to solve or can't solve?
Yeah.
So I think the kind of people I try to work with, my focus is on small businesses, especially businesses who have, especially like these young D2C guys and stuff like that, who just honestly need some sound logical advice for a period of time, and then I get out of it. That's the way I'm trying to kind of build myself as well, in terms of how you can help brands out. Which is, you don't need to hire me for you don't need to hire me on an ongoing basis, right? You just like probably need my help for 2 months or something like that, helping to set like a basic strategy or something, and then for you it's plug and play. After that, you work it out with your agency, internal teams, or whatever it is, right? So. For these brands, right, I think the worry for an agency is twofold. One is of course cost, and second is process. Like, oh, if I go to an agency, it's going to take so much time. The pitch will be there, this thing will be there, that will be there. I need something quick and dirty right now. And honestly, I think most of the time, Adi, I think there is just confusion as to what to do, right?
Yeah.
I think agencies make sense for brands and companies who are clear about what they need to do, right? Which is, okay, we are very clear about the fact that we need to spend on Facebook and LinkedIn and Google, for instance, to drive traffic to a website, for example, right? That amount of focus, sure, when you go to an agency is clear, but or even, okay, we need some sort of brand differentiation happening. We've got the same thing happening for the last few years, etc. Hence, a design agency, brand agency, or a ad agency can help us out possibly. But the problem for many of these guys is they are not even sure whether they need the services that an agency traditionally offers. Right. And they also they're like, oh, agency will charge so much amount of money, because they also inherently understand that the agency needs to charge a certain amount of money for the business to be viable for them.
Yeah.
So I think that sort of understanding is there. I think this new crop of entrepreneurs are coming up. They're fairly cognizant of that fact. And that is something that they're worried about. Again, keep in mind, this is just my experience from speaking to maybe a handful of like 5 to 10 founders and lots of other people in that space. But I think this is a genuine worry and probably there's another thing that's broken with the agency model right now, is that agencies will always be forced to sell things, or rather there's a little bit of conflict when it comes to consultancy and execution, if you know what I mean, right? Going to an agency, they will always want to pitch things that is in their best interest, bottom line wise, right? Right? Like I've faced that many times. It's a huge conflict that I've always had. Like, why am I selling social media to these guys? They don't need social media. But at the end of the day,
Absolutely.
it's easy 1.5 lakh a month retainer for us. I hit my targets, like, screw it. Yeah, it's okay. They have money. We have money. Who cares about the consumer in any case? Like Sriket said, the boss, the CMO is your target audience, right? So I think that wasn't a problem for big brands who are in on this whole thing. It's like one huge cahoots. The big FMCG companies, automakers and all that, and the big agencies, they're all in one nice little bubble by themselves, transferring people and money across each other every few years. I think that works out fine. But with a new set of people where money is an issue, where they actually need creativity as a solution, not necessarily like social media and stuff like, or, whatever, the ongoing retainer work and stuff like that. I think that is a worry for them. I think the cost and the process, and just being unsure about whether the advice that they're getting from these agencies are, is actually in their interest. I think that is the biggest worry, whether the advice they're getting is actually in their best interest, or whether it's just serving the interest of the agency's bottom line. Hence, I see them going to a lot of concern, and actually a couple of my ex-colleagues are trying to work out a system, and I think this might answer the. Actually, I'll answer that during your next question. I think it fits in quite nicely over there. Shrikar has a good point. Clients are increasingly
Yeah.
needing agencies to tell them what not to do. Sometimes this is more important than what to do. I think that's a great point.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I don't know
Bilkul.
whether that's,
As
yeah.
in, uh, the thing is that everybody is, what I've seen is that, the kind of options that people have today
Mm.
are crazy, and everybody is increasingly aware ki kya karna hai,
Yeah.
and you need someone to come and tell you ki don't do this
Yeah.
because of this,
Because
and then let's play among the options that we do have.
yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
extremely important.
By
Yeah.
the way, for everybody who's not part of this little agency clique over here, like I know there are most of you guys attending are not part of this agency setup. So take whatever we're saying, not necessarily from this is how agencies work, this is how, but like possibly even how to build your own careers itself. Like if there are
Hmm.
freelancers among you, for instance, you don't need to be part of an agency in order to help a brand out, for example.
Yeah.
Like reach out to companies your friends might have started or spaces that you're particularly passionate about. And honestly, I've spent enough time in advertising and digital, and I think the only things that you need really are a little bit of consumer focus and logic, honestly. A little bit of guts and all that, but everything else is just packaging. So that packaging and PPT really.
Couple
Uh,
of interesting points.
yeah,
I'll just pick up what Aviral has said here.
yeah,
Yes, a lot of companies are developing in-house
yeah,
capabilities rather than going to agencies. Now, of course, the reasons for this are fairly clear. It's
mm,
quicker, it's cheaper, and you get a group of people who know your brand really well. When
yeah,
agencies see attrition and they see constant inductions and their tonality changing, and they've got to have the same conversations, it's a pain in the ass. Like,
yeah,
believe you me, from an agency person saying this, it is a definite pain in the ass. And if I were on the marketing side, I would definitely be concerned कि लोग इतने क्यों बदल रहे हैं.
yeah,
So that is definitely happening. And what tends to happen as a result of this at agencies is that agencies sometimes tend to disincentivize attrition, number one, uh, which becomes a problem for employees who are actually there, because it's a problem for their respective careers if they can't move from agency to agency and growth to growth. Uh, it is extremely real, of course. And what tends to happen is that there's a lot of infighting amongst agencies because there's no quick solution to that.
mm,
Then what ends up happening is that, instead of having a retainer, you start having projects with them.
yeah,
So if you've got an in-house, very strong in-house brand that is handling all your major launches, your major themes, campaigns, what have yous throughout the year, the smaller pieces are what's left for the agencies, which to Chuck's earlier point as well, it just increases competitiveness.
yeah, yeah.
I don't think the industry has a very good solution to that right now. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we're hoping, of course, to
Yeah,
solidify.
it's a tough one, right? And I've been thinking about this as well. Like, what is a model that would work for everybody? Like, just to your earlier point, the other your screen just went off a little bit. I don't know whether that is deliberate or whether you're facing tech issues, but I'll just
Okay, yeah, that tends to go off when there's some Wi-Fi problem. Let me just check that. Yeah.
no. So the like the teams that do the best social media work, for instance, typically tend to be in-house. Yeah, you have some exceptions like Mumbai Police, for instance.
Yeah.
But take Zomato, for instance, there the stuff happens in-house completely. And in fact, I had the opportunity to interview one of the guys who used to work on the social media, Pranav Sapra. And the advantage that I felt from there, apart from of course all the creativity and all that, is there is so much uh, synchronicity with other parts of the business. So for him to come out with an idea that might have an impact on sales, for instance, or to get out approvals for an offer-led campaign, for instance, which he wants to do. It's super easy for them to do that internally. Whereas when you're on the agency side, that becomes another hurdle to cross, and you are in a way kind of disincentivized to do stuff like that. Purely because it becomes another, logistical hassle for you to do. So there's no easy answer to this, Aviral. But yeah, I think it's something that we are. It's very clear the winds are moving towards there. Like I see more and more in sourcing of agencies kind of happening. Big companies building their own creative teams. Ben and Jerry's, for instance, in the US, another very good brand on social. Um, it's going to be interesting, man. I'm not quite sure where it's going to go, and maybe agencies are just places you go to then for very specific execution or very specific kinds of thinking. Hence, all the more reason for agencies to build themselves up from a strategic point of view or a superb execution point of view. I'm not quite sure, to be honest. I think that's an interesting thing to say. Maybe that's another session we should do. What is the future of this entire
Yeah.
agency ecosystem, and what does it look like? Because I do think agencies, consultancies, freelancers, and of course brands in the middle of it all I think there's going to be some evolution happening in the next few years. All right, let's move ahead, shall we?
Yeah.
Okay, so my second question to you is, while I'm sure agencies and companies also are paying more attention to this new thing called digital, are they going beyond the obvious parts of digital? Like for me, I consider now Google search advertising and profile-based advertising on Facebook and Instagram as much a part of traditional marketing in many ways, because it's like
Yeah.
done and dusted. It's a process. There's not so much innovation that you even need to do in a situation like this. It's more about optimizing process, revenue, etc. So are brands and strategies taking advantage of the other things that digital offers? Now, I don't just mean like new platforms like a Fortnite or podcasts or something, but even like thinking of like new avenues, like let's start a new D2C channel, for instance, or let's do this on Amazon, for example. Is that sort of thinking there anywhere in the ecosystem, especially for the
I'll
bigger
be
ones?
Yeah, I'll be honest. It's more of a it's it's mostly client led, because the thing is that to have a point of view like this, you have to have a very strong understanding of digital itself.
Yeah,
To say that of all the things that digital affords me, these are the absolute basics. And then when you get to exactly what you said, that Google Trends and profile based advertising is fairly common right now.
hmm,
That comes from an understanding of the evolution of digital.
yeah,
If you haven't seen, or if you don't know of that evolution, you won't know that this is now staple.
right,
My growth or something interesting may not come from this, or there's a lot of other stuff to do. So when you start focusing on the other stuff, it requires that solid understanding, which a lot of brands, clients, strategists, it's
hmm,
agencies, it's just not there. Once you have that, to build on top of that is where you start thinking, okay, can I start a new D2C channel?
right,
That in and of itself, I think the gap between starting D2C
hmm,
and Google Trends is when you have Fortnite पे क्या कर सकते हैं, podcast क्या कर सकते हैं, which is the bank of ideas that you typically go to a creative team with and say कि what can we do, and then they'll come out with a whole gamut of these things, collaborations and stuff like that. So having a new D2C channel is, I think, one of the best things that you can do today. Especially, it's one of the challenges and problems that we've tried to help a few really savvy brands build up, especially over the Corona period.
yeah,
I obviously won't take names right now, but one of the brands that we service, they came to us and they said that retail's gone for a toss, and we need to protect ourselves against this. It
yeah,
comes down to a very basic element of strategy. uh, Simply put, don't put all your eggs in the same basket.
hmm,
So when you start de-risking and de-leveraging your business from one source, is when you start thinking, okay, D2C mein kya kar sakte hain?
yeah,
That's one of the challenges that we've helped a brand solve over the past couple of months, and it's already paying off dividends. I mean, I don't know if Nike started it a long time back, where their CMO said that I'm going to shut down 50% of the stores all over the world, and I'm going to start D2C. And that paid huge dividends right now through 2020, when their growth just accelerated, the stock prices went up.
hmm,
And that's when you start to see that a simple thing like this,
yeah,
how can I use different parts of digital, a different fulfillment model, for example,
yeah,
to actually drive business? And that's a more important conversation that
yeah,
than having.
the additional challenge to what you said, Aditya, Adi, is who gives this idea? Is this something that the client should initiate? Is this something that the planner should say, hey, this is a new channel that we should be using? Or is it a creative idea? This could honestly come from all three, right? And I don't think currently there is ownership or there is even clarity as to where this should come from. Rewind a few years back when the output was TV. You know what you need to do. The brand had a challenge. The strategist would say one, two, three things. Planner would say, okay, off this. You know that the output was going to be a TVC. Today, the solution to a problem could be, for like you said, a new D2C channel. It could be an activation on Fortnite. It could be a new
Yeah.
podcast, whatever it is. Where does this idea come from? Does the client say, let's start a new podcast? Does the strategist say, consumers are using podcasts, so let's do this? Or does the creative team say, to bring this idea to life, a podcast would be the best outcome? So I think, that just adds to the confusion, I guess, to the whole, to the whole mix. So I think, creatively oriented planners and strategy oriented creatives, I think that might be important going forward. I feel.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think it's been a while. You know of the decadal cycle that happens, right? In
Yeah,
every industry, ki 10 saal jab ho gaye and people have largely done the same things
yeah,
in similar ways, it's time for a tectonic shift.
it is.
That's that's what's really happening right now. I
Mm.
mean, in all the conversation that we've had over the past 45 minutes, also we've said that businesses are changing, problems are changing, and now we've just said that the roles that strategists have to play, creative people have to play, and even managers, marketing managers, brand managers have to play. That's completely shifting.
Yeah,
So I think the period of ambiguity is really, really important for two reasons. I think friction helps arrive at solutions. Once you go through this point of friction, is when you're going to be like, okay, this is how my JD is going to change. These are the different skill sets I require from somebody I'm going to hire. Number one. And number two, you start seeing the ambit of things.
yeah,
So
yeah.
now if we've started solving problems in similar ways, how is that ambit changing? What do solutions look like in today's world? A solution from an agency may look like something that was the bread and butter of a CMO.
Correct.
So I
Yeah.
think, I agree with you completely. Yeah, generalists and not specialists. Yeah.
Yeah, generalist, not specialist. Yeah, like my namesake Deepak said. By the way, guys, you can send these messages that you're sending us to everybody. I think I've enabled the settings to all panelists and attendees. So in case you want to do
Mhm.
that, you can do that. So my namesake Deepak just said, for this reason, I feel going forward, agencies need to go back to becoming generalists and stop being specialists. I think that's a good
Yeah.
point. All right, let's move ahead. I do see some people raising hands and stuff, but sorry, just pop in questions into the chat and we'll try to take them if
Yeah.
we can after, because we do want to try and stick to schedule, if nothing else. We've already increased the time, if you can notice, from 11 to 12 to 11 to 12:30. I have a feeling we'll overshoot that as well, but it's
Yeah.
okay. Adi, your last question for me. I think it's a very interesting one.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is something that I've been thinking about for a while as well, and I briefly touched upon this just now. That
Mm.
if you could set up an agency today, what would it look like? What are the different skill sets that you'd look for in people? What are the brands that you'd like to work with, and what are the problems you'd like to solve
Yeah.
in your own outfit, in your own setup?
Yeah, I mean, this is a question that everybody who works in advertising thinks about, right? If we were to start something, what would it look like? I think it boils down to a couple of things. I think I can't say what would be an ideal agency or a new agency model to start, because I can only answer this from my perspective, right? And my goals, etc., are very different from many. Like I, for example, am not too fussed about making a lot of money, for instance. Clearly, I got to know I spent half my life in advertising, very clearly. Um, I think for me, I think it varies, right? I think it varies for individuals and what they want to do, where they feel their skill sets are. Me, for instance, right? If you were to just ask me, one restriction I have placed on myself, at least for the foreseeable future, is I don't want to be responsible for anybody's salary. That
Mm.
is, and that's just me. That's just me. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that's a model that won't work for somebody who is driven enough, but that's just me. I cannot have the headache of, like, some guy is unable to pay his rent because I slacked off this month. I can't have
Yeah.
the tension, right?
Yeah.
I have, like, only I have to suffer because of my own laziness, or the other side. At least that's where I am as of now, and I guess that's sort of like because I've just started off in freelance life, and I consider myself fairly conservative in that sense. Also, I do value free time and stuff. So I really do. I've spent enough time, burning the midnight oil at agencies, and I'm really not keen on doing that again. That being said, if I were to set up an agency, I think it would be more. And let's take a hypothetical situation where I had to hire people. I still think I wouldn't hire people. I think uh, I would develop a network of people who might be able to help solve very specific business problems. I think I would like figure out core offerings. I would probably figure, like, I still think that I would not get into execution. I still think that my strength would be in uh, saying what is right, and to Shriket's point, what they should not be doing, and consulting them at
Mm.
that point. And I think I would pitch that as strength. I would say, listen, I have no vested interest in this. I will suggest social media for you, and you can rest assured that is coming from a point of recommendation from me, not because there's a retainer in it for me, right?
Yeah.
Similarly, and with that honesty, I can say then I will also tell you when I think that it's not right for you. For example, right? So I would operate purely on that model because I think that becomes a selling point in itself, to be very honest, right? And then what I would do once I have a decent hang of digital, then what I would try to do is I would try to work up a network of people who might be able to help out with certain things, right? Like, for example, I might have, of course, you'll have the regular skills that you might need. You might need a designer, you might need people who understand certain things, but I would also get people who agencies traditionally don't speak to, right? For example, I would actually go and seek out somebody who has, say, SaaS expertise. If I were to work on a SaaS product, for instance, how many agencies do that? How many agencies actually get into the skin, under the skin of the industry that they are working in? They always look at it from an agency perspective and from, hey, for people like us sort of perspective, right? So that's something I try to do. I would maybe even involve like people who have experience in the humanities, for instance, psychology and things like that. I think that would be a huge help in this day and age. Probably some people who have experience, like it depends on the brand, of course, but people who have actual experience on ground speaking to a certain set of people, for instance, right? I'm still deeply uncomfortable with how people in AC offices in Lower Parel make communications decisions that are going to impact people in rural Bihar, for instance. Works at some point of time, but more often than not, it's like there's a vast disconnect, right? So I think that's a broad model that I would work on, but then that's just me. That being said, I think there is scope. I think there is scope for a lot of different kinds of models, consultancies, agencies, whatever it is going forward. But one thing I do feel that's common to all of these is that the focus needs to be aligned to client business. It cannot be, I don't think it can. I think currently agencies are in the business of finding ways to retain clients. I'll be brutally honest about it. I don't think that's a very sustainable model for the industry going forward. And you're seeing the agency is seeing the rug being pulled out from under them. And I think you're just being more honest to the consumer, the brand, the business that you are in going forward. I would obviously also get a lot of people from the creative side of things who typically don't step foot inside agencies. In fact, if anything else, agencies are bleeding talent towards the more creative side of things. So yeah, that's what I would do, Adi. I'm not sure whether that's
No, that makes sense because it touches upon two of the things that I've been thinking of as well when I was going through this question in my head. There's a very interesting model that's coming up in some parts of the world, which is similar to what you said. It's crowdsourced solutions.
Yeah.
So you have an entire network of say 200, 300, 400 people, and you reach out to them for the kind of solutions that you require and see the kind of responses that you get. That's number one. And number two, creating not just bespoke teams. Some agencies, what tends to happen is that people who've worked on the same categories, the same kinds of brands, the same kinds of target groups, they're put on a pitch or they put on a new brand that comes in. But what you spoke of was, hyper bespoke teams. If I am operating on a SaaS product, can I have a SaaS person in there? So I think that level of customization into a business, it's almost like I'm creating this team and I'm deploying them right into you. So that might be an answer even to in-house capabilities, where you have this group of people who are just simply catered to your brand and we're managing the thought process.
100%. So, one thing I forgot to mention, which I wanted to say over here, is we are planners. We can't leave the session without talking about at least one model, right? So one book I read last year, which I keep talking about, is a book called Digital Darwinism by Tom Goodwin. And he talks about how companies need to, the challenges of building a brand in the digital, or rather company in the digital age. And the parallel that he draws is how companies were reluctant to use electrification a century back, and those guys like started and in many times it wasn't a fault of this because they're already spent so much money building a traditional system, and then electricity came in and like, hey, what is this new fancy thing called electricity? They still work the old way. It was very difficult for them to change, whereas people who didn't have that legacy and infrastructure were able to build solutions right off the bat. And I feel the same, and he said the same thing is happening with digital right now. You have lots of companies who have invested in the traditional way of working or advertising, marketing, whatever it is. And for them, it's very, like, for example, a simple example he gives is when a company mails you, why is their email a no reply? How difficult can it be to just set up, something as simple as that? And he gives a beautiful a model of sorts, which he called an onion or something. Of course, there's always a brand onion, right? So this is a company has three layers, right? And it's beautiful if you think about it. It sounds like a bit of faff, but it's actually beautiful. At the core, there are three levels. The core is what the company does: makes cars, sells SaaS software, whatever it is, right? That's the core of what the company does. Then on top of that is a layer which enables this to happen. These are the processes. These are the people. This is the vague thing called organizational culture, and on top of that is a wallpaper. That is what the external world sees, right? Which is the advertising campaigns. That's the logo. That's the, all the PR releases and all that. Now, which of these three things are the easiest to change? Obviously, the outside one, right? So it's very easy for a brand to signal and say, we are future oriented, Black Lives Matter, whatever the case may be, right? We are consumer focused. It's very easy for the marketing team to release a press release to that effect. But to actually make that happen, you need to affect the second and third layer as well, which is when it becomes more difficult because there are more people involved, there are more processes involved, there are more permissions to get, there are more people who could potentially be pissed off, etc., etc. So, and then he uses this as a model to explain how companies have actually affected change. Your example of Nike is a great one. Over here, it's not just the packaging. It's not just saying, hey, we are digital savvy, but you're actually changing number two. You're still making the same old shoe. So number three hasn't changed. The inner layer hasn't changed, but the middle level has changed. And he goes on to give other examples of companies that have changed, like all three of them, and have succeeded. So I think there is something over there. I think that could be a way of working in the future, right? Where your agencies or whatever solution comes up over here, it's not just about changing the wallpaper, but also about the fundamental things that are inside it. Does that make sense? At least level two.
Yeah,
Kafi fast.
Yeah, definitely. And I think so. In the beginning, when you were talking about the onion model and you started with shoes, I was like, okay, this might be similar to Simon Sinek's Golden Circle, but it's vastly different, and it's different in a way that it's more of a change effectiveness model, if I were to call it something.
Yeah.
So that's damn nice. It's very easy for someone to come and change the surface, make just superficial changes, but unless you change level 1 and 2, nothing's going to happen. That's where true business change lies, rather than just eyewash communication.
Yeah. There are some awesome questions coming in. Hopefully we can take we have time later, but let's get done with agenda first and then we'll get to them. So thanks for those. I do see something. Somebody has brought up the Wendy's question. I can see. Okay, Adi, my last question.
Yes.
There used to be a time when brands were legit content creators, right? They were the guys whose communication drove conversations, culture in some ways as well, right? Maybe the lasting legacy of that being how we look forward, or at least how the West look forward to Super Bowl ads, for instance. So there was a time when brands were legit content creators, and they would tie up with like kick-ass production houses to make memorable ads and all that. But now that creativity is democratized to a large degree, and it's quite likely that the person handling the brand account themselves has a more engaging social media account than the brand that they are handling. I think that's something that we have all seen in the agencies as well. Do you think this is true? And by the way, I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing in my mind. I don't think brands need to be content creators by themselves. I think that's highly overrated. I don't think brands need to create compelling content. At the end of the day, companies are, except for OTTs and edtechs and things like that, brands are, or companies are in the business of selling cars or soap or SaaS software or whatever the case may be. They are not in business to create content. That content used to be a way, that's another form of marketing, right? So if there are more efficient solutions to get this audience, build brand and all that, that kind of works. So, do you think this is kind of true? That
I think this is a really interesting question, and let me answer it the other way around. The end bit first. Now, I don't think that creating content is good for every brand. If it doesn't serve your business needs, don't do it. It's as simple as that. Otherwise, it's not going to be a revenue center. It's just going to be, you're just going to put money into it. Kuch nahi niklega usse bahar. And then you're going to get stuck on, why are we even doing this? That's when you're going to start and see, which comes back to the first part of the question, is that, and some of the questions here, you're just engaged in a 24/7 meme war, right? Danzo ne kuch nikala, some person from Zomato has replied, everybody loves it, but is it serving your business needs? Now, I might argue that, for some of these brands, for a brand that is present in the everyday, like a Zomato, like perhaps a Wendy's, like a Dunzo, it's really important that I see you whenever I touch my phone.
Correct.
Yeah. So
What's the
that
larger
it
business?
built-
Yeah. What's the larger implication of this? Is basically what it's
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. So if you don't need to do it, number one, don't do it.
Yeah.
The problem is that most brands miss this bit of the thinking. They
Yeah.
directly jump to monkey see, monkey do, in
Yeah.
really harsh terms, of course.
Yeah.
And sorry about that. But that's what ends up happening. And what's happening is that I don't think that brands are not a part of culture anymore. I think brands are definitely a part of culture. There are some phenomenal pieces that are coming out
Yeah.
across different media points, which people talk about. And once you see something, once you talk about it, that's how culture is created. What is definitely happening though is that the shelf life of this kind of creation, the shelf life of these conversations is drastically reduced. If I look back and think about some of the Dove ads that used to happen
Yeah.
a number of years ago, phenomenal pieces.
Yeah.
Some of the work that these brands have produced, incredibly good. I remember one ad that Westpac had done with DTB Australia, one of the most beautiful ads that I've ever seen. So it's not like that stuff doesn't happen. It's that you have to be very sharply focused on why are you creating that content and the larger business thing that it serves, and definitely don't get into a war that you don't need to.
Yeah.
Fight the battles that you need to.
Yeah.
So yeah, they are still content creators and culture creators.
Yeah.
But it's the shelf life that has become drastically
Absolutely.
affected.
I think another way of looking at it is when we say brands are content creators, I think mind immediately moves to, have they done something cool on Twitter? Have they posted like a cool Instagram meme or something of that sort? While content by itself could mean a whole bunch of other things, right? It's not always just about, latching onto a trending topic and creating some fun stuff around that. For instance, there's a lot of serious content too that can possibly be created. Now, that may not travel, as they say, as much as the meme, but
Yeah.
maybe they don't need to. Like, for example, I'll give you an example. Right? I use this as an example in my marketing class. Sometimes I Googled up, do I need home insurance once? Okay. And the first result for that was an ad by one of the top insurance players in India saying, buy home insurance.
Naturally. Yeah.
So I was still searching for whether I needed it or not, because I was looking at that point of time. But the first result was an ad selling me insurance. Now, if that company had actually taken the time to create, relevant content over there, saying, okay, here are 5 reasons why you need home insurance. Now, it's not as sexy as creating a meme out of Bernie Sanders and putting it up and getting cheap thrills and laughs over that, but it serves business a lot more, is what I feel, right? So I think there is scope to create content which may not necessarily be, oh, look, how funny this brand is. But sure, but what is that brand getting as a result of that? I think that's the other thing that people miss out. They see that some brand has created a fun meme or something has traveled, and sure, it's funny for a point of time, but what is that serving? Or is that time that you're spending thinking about that better spent doing stuff that you are good at? Like, I always feel like, and anyone who's attended my marketing course will know that I love taking the pants of financial brands, especially. I genuinely think that these guys have a wealth of potential content that they can create, which doesn't necessarily need to be hashtag edgy, as it were, right? Like, if ICICI Bank were to put out a course on finance, for instance, I would buy it. I would attend that course. I would pay them money for it, right? I'm just shocked that none of these guys are actually doing something that they are so good at inherently, right?
Yeah.
Like The Economist, for instance, they have webinars with their journalists, with their writers and stuff, which is great. That's amazing brand building for them. Right? I'm surprised that more brands don't do things like that. And that is content,
that's true.
and that is more relevant content, I would say, than
Yeah.
it may not be as sexy and fun. Social Samosa will not pick it up and say, haha, look what these guys did with. But I think it serves it's that, right? Like Sriket said over here, content creation should be a means to end.
Absolutely.
I think when you lose sight of that end, then you just go for the means. Then then it's just about planting flags. Then it's honestly just about, haha, look, I also did this meme. I guess to some extent it is to showboat internally as well, right? To say, haha, look, we also created a meme on Bernie or something, or which everyone's talking about. So yeah, I guess
there is 2 brands that aren't very well known. One is they're both in the music space. One is Fender, which is slightly better known.
Yeah.
And the other is Stu McDonald. Stu Mac makes tools so that you can build, repair, fix guitars. And these 2 are phenomenal content creators. Fender actually has lessons on how to become a great musician, of course, but also they figured out that most people or most guitarists who have these guitars at home, they would like to be able to service it themselves, because getting that done is damn expensive. They launched an entire series of how you can take care of, like, yeah, DIY stuff at home, inexpensive tools that you can buy, what sound on your guitar means what part is gone kharab. Just these simple things, that is definitely content creation. It's not funny, it doesn't need to tickle your ribs, but it builds saliency for the brand in a way that is relevant to the consumers, and it comes out from that insight. I had to throw that word out there.
No, that's completely fine. See, that's the thing. I think content should either be like another thing I say, for example, is that content should either be useful or it should be entertaining, right? I think brands are trying too hard to be useful, to be entertaining. And they're trying too hard to be entertaining. And let's face it, not everybody can be funny, right? Then please don't. The fact of the matter is, brands come from companies which have a wealth of experience. Use that and be useful to somebody rather than. And the other mistake that brands make is they try to make one communication useful for everybody, and everybody, right? So you have, for example, a lot of AMCs, for instance, trying to make how mutual funds explained. Now the problem is they're trying to be funny and they're trying to be knowledgeable at the same time. It doesn't serve anybody. It doesn't serve the people who are new to mutual funds, because they're not going to come to a mutual fund company, because they'll figure out independent channels to do that. And at the same time, guys who are invested in mutual funds, who like that, that content's too basic for them. I think that audience focus really matters.
That's true.
Your audience in terms of cohorts and see, okay, what is it that I have that can serve this audience well, this audience well, this audience well. One brand that I think has done a decent job of that in the last few years is OnePlus. I think they've created like specific content for photographers, specific content for music creators, specific content for gamers, for instance, which have done a lot of work around recently. And I think that sort of focus really, really helps. I think it's better to be very relevant to a small set of people rather than, wishy-washy over a large set of people, both for advertising and for content.
Completely agreed.
Yeah.
Should we jump into the bank of questions?
Yeah, we should. Adi, time check. It's 12, which is the only time. So how much time should we do this for?
I'm good to go till 12:30. We can definitely do it till then, and then we'll see how many people.
Let's take 12:30, and then we'll take a call from there. To answer as many as we can there. Let's try to actually answer questions of people who are actually over here. Even though there are some good questions, I want to make sure that So I've ranked some questions over here on the same sheet as well. Is Adit over here? Adit is not. So if you guys are over here, then we'll answer those. Raghav, you're here, right? Raghav Swami is here. I'm guessing that one Raghav is you. So let's actually, I'd like to take the first one, Aditya, because I think it flows in very nicely from what we were speaking about. Do you mind if we do that? I have a short answer for that. So Adit, who is not here, hopefully he'll see the answer when we put this recording up, has a very simple question. What does it take to be a brand planner in the digital world? I think that segues nicely from everything that we've spoken about to this. In my mind, and I put in like another little diagram over here, I think a brand planner in the digital world, and thank you for not saying digital planner, because I do think another thing that's going to happen is, and at least this should happen, is there should not be the segregation of mainline planners and digital planners. And this, when you started the session, Avi, you said this exact same thing, right? Which is, you have your brand planners who sit in their rarefied mainline bubbles, who use all the agency models and everything and figure stuff out. And then you have the digital guys who know the ins and outs of tools, but have no freaking clue what, whatever brand pyramid or whatever it is, Ogilvy Fusion or whatever it is the kids use these days, right? I think both, it needs to, like they need to talk to each other a lot more. I think agencies, an ideal integrated agency in my mind is where the strategy team is one. To be fair to a certain agency which I worked in a few years back, they tried to do this, but the effort stopped at getting all the planners to sit on the same floor together. What just ended up happening was that everybody just worked on each other's things, and digital planners got a bit of exercise by walking up 2 floors to speak to the servicing teams. That's all that happened. Fair effort, to be fair, because that was back in 2013. But it didn't change things fundamentally all that much. So if you were to ask me, what does it take to be a brand planner in the digital world? I think it's a combination of three things. One, brand stuff. Two, a good knowledge of the digital platforms itself. And three, a strong hand on business objectives. I think you need all three. I think the moment you
Yeah.
lose any one of these, right? For example, if you lose out on business objectives, you might end up creating great solution, great ideas, etc., which doesn't move the needle on business. Might win advertising awards, but we all know how useful those are. If you lose sight of digital platforms, you just end up doing the same old things again and again. And if you lose sight of the brand stuff, then you might just end up creating, let's face it, unmemorable advertising. If you leave it entirely to a digital planner, the risk is they'll say, who needs to build a brand? Facebook, Google, and Amazon marketing are all you need for efficient ROI to happen, and let's do that. And that's the risk of that happening. So to me, ideally, all three should be there. There should be a knowledge of the brand stuff, which could be the agency's models, understanding what exactly a brand is, what all those elements are. Then a good knowledge of digital platform. But when I say good knowledge of digital platform, you don't need to be a geek in Google Analytics. You just need to know, okay, what are the different things that are out there and what are they useful for? Then if SEO is part of the solution, then get an SEO agency or a specialist to do it. You don't need to be an expert in SEO yourself. You need to know what is capable of, and then a strong hand on business objectives. You should, so in a sense, you should be able to speak to the CMO, the agent, the say specialist agency, and the CFO of the brand company. That's kind of like how I would put it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's perfectly put. The only thing I would just like to add as a slight detail there is you have to realize that you're not going to be able to know all of these.
Yeah.
Nahi aayega. It's just like I think Shriket said sometime back that be a generalist, don't be a specialist. And what that comes with is understanding that I don't need to know how to and where these buttons are located, data nikalte kaise hain. You need to know when you have to go to that tool, number one, which is very, very important. If you don't know when you got to go to that tool, you might as well not have it.
Yeah.
As simply put as that, number one. And number two, with that comes the other part, the doubling down on the expectation of the analysis of the data. Like one of my finance teachers had said, why do they, like, an MBA in finance is separate from a CA in the terms that a CA will know how to make the balance sheet and MBA finance will know how to read it. So you've got to know how to read it. Both are equally important, but you have to know how to read that data and make sense out of it. You don't need to worry about pulling the data out, what the interface looks like, things like that. But I think that's as perfect as can be. Business, brand, and the tools that digital
and tools, or platforms. Super.
Yeah.
The next question then, Raghav. I am assuming that's you over here. Okay, Raghav actually says, I'm intrigued by your topic, the changing topic of the changing role of digital for brands. Does this mean that the role that digital plays in consumers' life has changed? Therefore, brands need to learn and adapt, or the way brands look at digital has changed because of the algorithms, platforms available, budgets, etc. My answer to that is yes. It is both. It is both. I don't have anything more to add to that. It is both. Just to like rephrase that again, because I think I did a bad job of articulating it. Does the changing role of digital for brands mean that one, the role that digital plays in the consumer's life has changed, therefore brands need to learn, adapt, etc., etc., or the way brands look at digital has changed because of algorithms, platforms, available budgets, etc. I think it's both. I think it's a combination of both of these, to be very honest. And I think that's part of where the confusion about how to tackle digital sort of sort of comes in. I think agencies look at it more from the latter point of view, and I think you need to look at it from the former point of view.
Yeah, I agree. And just to take this conversation where it ties in is a little upstream. Brands have to have a very strong pulse on what the consumers doing. Brands, agencies, both. So as long as that focus on the consumer is absolutely tight, everything else will flow.
Correct.
Not only has the role of digital changed in the consumer's life, of course, I mean, basis the time frame, you could say things like Reels has come up, and if you just broaden the time frame a little now, I can literally get anything I want delivered to my door, which wasn't possible about 10 years ago. And everything else, that you've mentioned in your question, Raghav, algorithms, platforms available, budgets, tools, those are just ways of reading the same consumer. It's just more research, because at the end of the day, aapka data kya hai? It's literally what your consumer is doing.
Yeah.
So as long as you have that focus on the consumer, it flows from there.
Yeah.
The data, the algorithms is just another way of looking at the same consumer.
Yeah. I think part of the challenge also is that, I mean, this is not directly answering Raghav's question, but just to take off from something you said, I think part of the challenge is also digital platforms are just moving at a pace that traditional marketers are not, and agencies are not used to. Like, you know, just when you've got a hang of your Facebook strategy, what do you know? Facebook is obsolete. All right, Instagram seems to be the new thing. Oh, guess what? It's not about the feed anymore. It's now about the stories. Bloody hell, okay. Now we've got a hang of the Instagram strategy. Oh, wow. Now there are 3 new features over here. Have you used the questions feature? And for this, the tragedy about this whole thing is the junior most person in the chain knows this inherently,
Yeah.
right? And their counterparts in the so-called cooler brands, as it were, be it a Dunzo, be it a Zomato, etc., they have already executed this, because for them to go from realizing that this has happened to executing it is the matter of 30 seconds. Right? Oh, a new features come out, let's try it. But in an agency, you need to approve this thing, that thing, all that. Oh, why do we use this? Evaluate versus other platforms. Oh, by the way, what happened to TikTok strategy? Oh, TikTok is banned in India. So, oh, yeah, right, all that. So, you know, by the time all that happens, you are already obsolete and out of the door, man.
Yeah, the kind of speed that is needed is crazy.
Yeah.
Which again, you know,
the perspective is needed more and more, right? Which comes to your point, really. What are you trying to achieve out of it? Is it worth it? I think that's it. Boils down to that, right? Is this is lovely quote I read somewhere by the head of DARPA, the guys, you know, who invented the internet, as it were. His quote was, and I might get the mangles up a little bit. He said something like, "It's not about whether it would work, but if it worked, would it matter?" You know, I really like that. I really like the.
That's damn nice.
One of those lines, and it wasn't with context to marketing at all. And it's DARPA at the end of the day, which created the internet. So I'd like to think they know a little bit about technologies.
A little bit, yeah.
The world. Sorry, you were saying something, Adi. I think I just butt into that.
No, I was just saying broad strokes. This only that you need to take a call on why you're doing it. So that I think a lot of what we said boils down to that key focus on the why of what you're doing. The rest will happen. The rest will take care of itself.
Okay, this will go nicely to the next question. Yashwant is over, and he's been here for a while, so I want to make sure I answer his question. Nikhil's not here, so we'll take that a little later. Yashwant says he's getting right down to brass tacks over here. None of this brand architecture nonsense or anything. Just get down to the brass tack. Is there any more rope left in digital to make a career? Sorry, in advertising to make a career out of it, or has digital been brought down to the level of a meme war, that is moment marketing? He does say joking, but I'm pretty sure he's not joking as well. Adi, I really like your take on this first before I jump in.
So I don't think I can say anything apart from yes, there is definitely rope left in advertising. Otherwise, we'll go into a very like an existential flow here. I do think there is, honestly, jokes apart, I do think there is a ton of potential left in advertising. And what's really happening right now is that points of flux are where things get more interesting.
Yeah.
Like the entire industry is going through a huge change. And what's interesting is that nobody else decides your location in all of that. If things have already been happening in a very steadfast manner for a very long period of time, you know where you're going to slot into, and it's typically other people who take that call, who slot you into what a traditional planner is supposed to do, what a traditional creative person or manager is supposed to do. But in the middle of all this flux, you get to decide what your role is. So that is what I find most interesting about advertising, and I feel that there's a lot of rope left to explore that. That's number one. And number two, I think we answered the second part of your question in some way or form, that has digital been brought down to the level of a meme war? Unfortunately, some brands seem to think it has, and it takes a re-perspective on the same things to understand that no, you know, it doesn't need to be a meme war. What is this really a part of? You can't chase every trend. It's not possible to chase every trend. So you've got to pick which trends you want to be a part of, but much more importantly, you've got to focus on whether you want to be a part of it at all. I think Shikesh just said here that, you know, not every brand needs to be agile. If your brand doesn't need it, if it's not benefiting from it, don't do it. You don't need to engage in meme wars. Simply put, if the thing is, the reason we tend to think that advertising has become a meme war is because the brands that engage in meme wars tend to be more visible.
Yeah.
So it's confirmation bias more than anything else. We've decided that, okay, meme wars are all that's happening. Then we go to our Instagram feeds and we see that, okay, there's Dunzo, there's Swiggy, there's Zomato, and Netflix and Prime, all publishing memes. And therefore we think that it's all meme wars. It's definitely not, and it shouldn't be all about meme wars.
Yeah,
is where I land
100% agree. I always, another example I say that is the most valuable technology company in the world, Apple, has a grand total of 5 posts on its Facebook, all of which were just promotions for its various products. So if they don't need to get into meme marketing and still build a huge business out of it, clearly they're doing something like, yes, it's a whole lot of other things have happened as well, but learn about what has happened over there rather than try to necessarily replicate what it's not about going viral or trending. Like again, like you said, what does it sort of lead to? And Yashwant, I'll just give you my point of view on this as well. Is there any more rope left in advertising? So to see the second part of your question, has digital been brought down to the level of a meme war? Like Adi says, yeah, it definitely looks that way to many observers on the outside. And I don't think some of these boutique agencies have done themselves any favors by saying that, yeah, we can create memes for you. Or sure, there are some specialists who do things. In fact, there are some very good meme marketing agencies, but then identify that that's something you might need only for a specific point of time. If your entire content strategy is based on memes and moment marketing, that might not necessarily be the best way of going about things, I think. But to answer the first part of your question, is there any rope left in advertising to make a career out of 100%? I think there definitely is. I think, like Adi said, it's a time of flux right now. And I have no doubts that, okay, so while agencies in their current form or even advertising in its current form might not be there in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever the case may be, there is no doubt that if you just reduce down what advertising is, companies need to speak to potential consumers in some way or the other. In the 1960s, in the 1600s, they sent town criers. Then came newspapers, then television. Digital has provided a lot of options. Tomorrow, it could be virtual reality or whatever Elon Musk wants to put into our heads. So there will always be people who help brands get literally or figuratively into the heads of consumers. Now, whether that happens via a formal advertising agency, whether that's an independent practitioner like me, whether that is a division that is built within the companies, whether that is Elon Musk's team itself building out a separate brand solutions team. Wow, that sounds very, very dystopian. Brand solutions, Elon Musk getting into your head. Fuck, that's the
imagine,
most thing I have ever
Amazon
thought of, and that's a line of fiction for anyone who wants to take a stab at it. But yeah, the point being, I think there will always be a role over here. So it may not be advertising, but I think there definitely is anyone who is in the system right now and has a little bit of logic and is willing to learn from what's happening and apply that and change rather than just go with the flow. If you're an executioner right now, I don't think there's much of rope. Let me put it that way. If you're selling yourself as I am very efficient at something, or if I'm very like I have a Facebook account, therefore I can do your social media marketing for you and not necessarily think about what you're doing, then yes, I think the rope is short. But if you can think a little bit and observe what's happening and then apply that, have an opinion of your own, I think there definitely is rope, not just in advertising, but then you can jump off the brand side, consultancy, whatever it is. I think communications as a whole, I think, is going to be a very, very vibrant space going forward. And I also think, just to take that a little bit ahead, I think certain industries are going to flourish a lot in going ahead. So anything to do with medical, for instance, is going to be really huge. Like Scott Galloway says, any industry that accelerates the transition from the workplace to home, that's going to be a very, very that's going to be a thriving space. I mean, I'm just saying, just as industries, not necessarily with respect to advertising. That's going to be, all that is going to be, a very good space for companies going forward. All right, I think that we have done a decent job of that. Next, Sriket, I'm really looking for this. Sriket has asked, as a brand, if your approach is to carve out a specific role for digital, aren't you already outdated? tough one, no? Like, seems like they've woken up a little too late, but I'd like to give them the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, maybe at least now they're showing the intent. As long as it's not just to do what others are doing, I think it's fine. You've woken up a little late, but I think it's fine. Yes, you are outdated, but as long as you have the intent to not be outdated anymore, and importantly, not just catch up. It's not a matter of, oh, competitor is doing this, therefore I also need to do this. As long as it's not that, and as long as you recognize it for being, directly impacting your own business, yes, you may be outdated, but it's not too late to catch up. I would like to think, even like for any industry, really.
Yeah.
I think it's possible. I think it's. I mean, I can't think of an example right now, but um, uh, listen, if huge conglomerate, like if Maruti can start a subscription service, a digital led subscription service, which affects all three layers. Oh, Tom Goodwin,
Yeah.
Maruti Suzuki, if they can manage to do that, and you don't think of them as a digitally savvy brand or a digital savvy category, they can do it, then I think anyone can. So yeah, Shrikar, to answer your question, I think you are already outdated, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're extinct. That's the other thing. You need
Yeah.
to before you get extinct. Yeah, if you're a blockbuster still saying that the world is going to buy DVDs from now on, then obviously then that's the problem with level one itself. The product itself is outdated. I think that's a bigger risk in this day and age.
Yeah. And just to build on to what Chuck just said, I think carving out a role for digital is more iterative than a one-time thing.
Yeah.
It should ideally, you should, like, when you're having your AOP discussions and your 1-year plans and your 5-year plans, it should definitely have some conversation there. But I think with something that moves as quickly as digital, the landscape, check in every 6 months or so as to what the role of digital is, what you're really using it to get to. And I think that if you don't do that, then it's a larger risk of falling off the wagon. I think a brand that doesn't have digital can still get into digital, but a brand that has digital and just keeps doing things in the past, it's way worse because you're putting in money already and you're not getting any return on it.
Yeah,
I think that would be far worse.
Yeah, 100%. Okay. I hope we have answered. So we have answered questions from Adit, Raghav, Yashwant, Sriket. I mean, we are going to mix up the order a little bit just to give priority to whoever sent in questions, and we have them over here. Abhijit is over here, right? So Abhijit asked, does analytics destroy the art of storytelling, and how do you adapt to this change? It's an interesting one, isn't it? As a planner, I would like to think that analytics to some extent has to drive storytelling in some sense. So I look at it like this, right? And also let me combine two questions. So Nikhil, who is not here, asked, how should brands look at ROI now? What is ROI even in this day and age? And how should they approach activities and appropriately map ROI? So I still like to go back to the first principles of marketing in some sense and try to dissociate from digital proper. And I think it all boils down to business metrics. What are the company's business goals, right? And then how does, like, I still believe that advertising will succeed if it looks at itself as not making ads but using creativity to solve business problems. I think if that is achieved, right, I think advertising communications has a very, very bright future ahead of it. So if you start from there, it really then breaks down into brand metrics and sales metrics, right? And analytics has a role to play in each of these, but it should know when to drive and when to dictate, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Like on the sales side of things, I think what you say, Abhijit, makes a sense. Like, does analytics destroy the art of storytelling with respect to sales? It can, and I would actually say it should. Like, if you're talking about sales, right, screw storytelling, right? You're very clear about what these two are supposed to be. You're going to do something that's going to be good for the brand, then let it be optimized for brand storytelling. It needs to be driven from consumer insight, etc., etc. But the end result might not be something that you might be able to do analytics around. I might be super simplifying this whole thing with the privilege and luxury of somebody who doesn't have to go and make a PPT for a client on Monday, but this is like an outsider's perspective. But when you're looking at it from a sales point of view, because it's numbers, right? It is 100 rupees in, 150 rupees out. You have to let analytics drive that. You have to constantly do A/B testing. You constantly have to see which audience is working better for you. So there, I would say, See, over there, it's not about storytelling. Over there, it's about selling. You do what works for selling. Of course, within brand guidelines and all that, obviously.
Yeah.
There, I would say if analytics destroys storytelling, let it. It's
Yeah.
fine because over there, it's more geared towards selling, sales, etc., etc. But for the more romantic side of things, for the more brand building, let our creative wings fly sort of thing, there analytics directs and directs to some point saying that this is the audience, this is what they're looking for, etc., and then let creativity take over from there. And like somebody at Wonderman Thompson once said, brands are a promise of future sales, right? So all these two processes need to happen in parallel, I think. I actually think analytics are a lovely thing. I think like you said, the ability to read data, I think is important. And I think the mistake might be we get too hung up on metrics that don't matter. A great example would be social media metrics. I have wasted so much of my time, trying to. Shrikesh will obviously know this because we were in the same boat together for different clients. Benchmarking our social media metrics, engagement rate versus the competitors, when in reality it doesn't make an iota of difference from the business point of view, right? Similarly, Google Analytics. Google Analytics is great at giving you a lot of numbers, but what do those numbers mean? Like, if you are going to increase time spent on the website, if that is your objective, then see, the problem with all those isolated metrics by themselves is they can be gamed in various ways, right? If you want to increase time spent on the website, just put an image that's going to take longer to load. It just means that consumers are going to be more pissed off. Does it actually lead to business in some way? I think that's the thing that it should all. I think all these platform metrics, be it GA numbers, Facebook numbers, Instagram numbers, whatever it is, I think they should act as indicators to see, okay, whether we're doing something is on the right path or not. But once you get too beholden to them, I think then you're in for a then those numbers can be gamed. Your focus goes on to the wrong things that may not necessarily serve the business, right? Like yesterday I was reading a lovely piece that Neil Gaiman wrote about how to build a career in freelancing and just writing in general. And he says, listen, you every day you take small decisions that move you towards the mountain, right? There will be distractions along the way. In career, obviously there will be distractions that will happen, but even like over here, that analogy can be kind of drawn over here as well, right? There are lots of shiny new toys that will get you. Oh, at one moment you have moment marketing, you have this, you have that, but don't lose sight of the thing that you're getting towards. I don't know whether it sounded too philosophical, I guess, but
I think that's great. I think just two really sharp things that I'd like to say about analytics specifically. Use analytics to inform the storytelling that you're doing. Analytics has place both pre and post. It's again, like I'm saying, it's another kind of research. You're looking into another tool, but you're again looking at the consumer at the end of the day. So if it's storytelling that you have a focus on, what part of the challenge does analytics solve? Is there a really sharp insight? Is there a specific problem that you can solve? I read Spotify here somewhere, and one of the master Spotify campaigns is that great example. Even the master campaign that they've done, we have a playlist for that. It of course wants to talk about Spotify's algorithm and the number of playlists it can generate. But the truth about the consumer that they found is that people today have playlists for everything. They have playlists for when they're traveling, when they're sleeping, when they need to work, when they need to wake up in the morning. Sab kuch ke liye playlist hai, which is why that makes sense. So if that's how you're using analytics and storytelling, 100%. And then as a result of that, I think what Chuck was also saying is that you've got to figure out which KPIs specifically you want to measure success with. Very important before the campaign. What am I going to look at as my success indicators? And then when you look at them, that's where a lot of ROI also comes in. Have I met those KPIs? What are these KPIs? Have I met those KPIs? And do these KPIs make sense to be there in the first place? Unless you have
sorry, go ahead.
Unless you have a very sharp eye on those things that you've already decided, your campaign is going to go haywire. With more data, you're going to just be like, okay, this is also something I can analyze. This is also something I can analyze. And you're ultimately going to be like, why isn't my follower base increasing from 15,000 to 25,000? And that 10,000 is just, it doesn't make sense.
Absolutely. Because the 10,000 can be gamed. And by the way, while a lot of what we're saying right now might sound like, advertising idealism, I think there is something over here. I think if we start thinking this way and start seeding these kind of thoughts within the agency or to our clients, or if any of you are not from the agency side, within the company itself, and start aligning communications more towards the business goals. I think there is some sense over there. During one of these online conferences I attended, I think it was Zmelt or one of the things like that. I think the CMO, I think it was a CMO, global CMO of Mastercard, Raja somebody, who had spoken about the diminishing role of the CMO at the table, right? And he said a lot of, if you think about what marketing is supposed to do, it's supposed to do sales, it's supposed to do distribution, it's supposed to do this, it's supposed to do that, it's supposed to do growth. Now, if you think about it, these the vital parts of what used to be marketing or the CMO's purview are being stripped away. And why is because marketing has got itself into all these metrics that don't make sense to anybody else. Like, when the CEO calls for a CXO level meeting and asks, all right, what has marketing done this quarter? You say something like your brand lift scores have increased, or your follower base on Instagram has increased, or something. What does that mean for business, right? So I think it's, I think that's sort of, again, like I said, it's not easy. I again say this from the luxury of somebody who doesn't have to make a PPT and justify to a client on Monday. But I think that these all small sort of steps, I think, will help not just the company, but also honestly position you in some ways, and help you take a decision in terms of what career, how you want to go. For all you know, building up that skill and reputation inside an agency that may not subscribe to that point of view will stand you in very good stead when you say apply to a consultancy or something like that. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, hey, I like the way you spoke about analytics 2 years back. I am at X consultancy right now. Why don't you come interview us? These things compound, man. Reputations compound. Take it from somebody who has built a freelance career out of doing absolutely nothing but milking reputation, and just trying to be a little honest with clients. Let's see if there are any other questions from anybody else. So I think Rohin is still over here, right? Rohin, hey, hi Rohin. Good to have you over, good to see you over here. Actually, Rohin, sir, good friend, we have shared local trains many times. Why are all the social media benchmark brands in India centered around being humorous? And should brands operate in serious domains and should brands that operate in serious domains feel an obligation to lighten up as they try to be present on the same platforms? I think we have kind of answered this in various ways, right? So if it makes a difference to the brand, then sure, go for it. See, that's the thing. There's nothing stopping a serious company from being funny, right? But then notice what that is going to do for the business. Is it going to help drive business? Maybe not, right? Is it going to help attract a new set of people to apply to the company? That's another way of thinking about it. GE, for example, one of the greatest campaigns that they did over the last year was this incredible YouTube series where there was this, it was such a self-referential campaign that they did, self-deprecatory campaign rather, where there was this one guy called Owen who got a job at GE. And this is the height of app mania, right? And he's super excited about the fact that he's going to be working on turbines and things like this, old school things. And around him, nobody can understand why on earth Owen has chosen, with his big career, with his big degree and everything, to go and work for GE. So he's coming like, I've got a job at GE. And everybody's like, so turbines. Yeah, I'm going to save lives, like hospitals. And another guy at the table is like, yeah, I'm going to work for, he shows an app with the, dog ears coming out of the face filter sort of thing, and everybody at the table is super excited. Similarly, like, he's saying the same things to his dad, and the dad expects him, like, he's very disappointed with the fact that he didn't go to one of the big tech startups and things like that. Now, when you do it like that, with that level of focus, knowing what you want out of it, it drives the creative also, right? The focus is a lot more. So yes, you can be serious, you can be funny, but understand what that is achieving. If it's just to say, haha, you guys are funny, so I'm also funny, I don't think that's going to serve anything. Which is not, so to answer your question, yes, brands operating in serious domains can 100% be funny. Some brands might even use it as a competitive advantage. Geico in the US, for example, the only financial brand that I would willingly follow on social media. They are outstanding. There are very few brands, Adi, that I would that I would willingly say this is great content to consume when you're smashed out of your head. That is one brand. And for a bank, for an insurance company rather,
Insurance company.
right? But then that is their company. They have identified, okay, this is the way we are. They will have serious conversations about being funny, right? But pair back and then say, okay, what is this content serving? If you're operating in a serious domain and you don't have the ability, or if you don't see the need to be funny, focus on your business. It's more likely that you're going to get business out of putting content, the right content in front of the right people. In could be like people who are buying, like if people are searching for best SaaS software or something, at that point of time, you don't want to be telling them a joke, right? You want to be telling them, like, even if you search for Geico's insurance, it's not like they're going to be making fun of you in their form, although that would be very much on brand. Hope that answers the question, Rohin. What do you think, Adi?
No, I think that's absolutely perfect.
And you kind of, and whatever you said kind of fits in. I really like that thing that you said. Like, it all boils down to it, right? What is this in service of? Like, what is this doing?
If it's not serving a purpose, don't do it. I mean, I mean, that might be reductive at times to say it. And of course, that's a difficult conversation to have with an extremely senior CMO who's telling you, "Ki mujhe ye karna hai."
Yeah.
But
no, but that's the thing. I think if you challenge him on that and give him, again, put his KPIs on the table, say that this is not going to serve the purpose necessarily. However, what is it that you're trying to achieve by doing meme marketing or whatever it is? Oh, okay. Here is a better way of doing that. You guys are better equipped to do this. Sure, it may not get you into Social Samosa's funniest posts of the last week, but what does that matter in any case? Right?
Social Samosa is not your KPI. Honestly, your board of directors is not going to ask.
With all due respect to Social Samosa, I think do a very good job of what they
very good job.
But
but Social Samosa can't be your KPI.
Yeah. Unless you have a Social Samosa KPI, in which case, I think that focus is important, right? If you are trying to get into Social Samosa, then sure, at least you know then what you're
aiming towards,
what you're going for. Yeah, the lack of focus. Is Shaurya here? I believe Shaurya is here, right? Yeah. Okay. Okay, Shaurya, your question is thoda vertical specific, so I would prefer not to answer that right now. Hopefully, I'll just give you a little answer for that a little later. Forgive me for that, but we do want to try and keep things that are non-industry specific as of now. Is Sanika here? Aditi is here, right? I saw Aditi over here. Okay. Aditi's question, assuming that is the same Aditi, with more and more agencies turning into one-stop solutions, will we finally see more cohesive messaging from brands, or is this bound to fail? Interesting question. What do you think? You're better suited to answer this, Adi, I think. Theoretically, I would say...
Yeah, I think, when it... Sorry, I didn't catch that.
No, theoretically, I'd like to think that is the case.
Yeah, I think, brands are turning into one-stop solutions. The problem is that...
Agencies
more agencies are turning into one-stop solutions. But I think that's a function also of what kind of agency are you? If you have to have... if you're like an agency that just says that, I'm just going to take care of shopper marketing. I understand that in today's world, this is the place that retail has. Flux has changed it in these ways, and that's the problem I'm going to solve. Then your agency is not in that space.
Yeah.
So when it comes to cohesive messaging, I'm not sure it's a correct expectation of agencies to have cohesive messaging from brand. That's something that the brand also has to take care of. If it comes to a large enough brand that you have the mandate, like if you're handling comms across the gamut of that brand, then yes, you do need slightly more cohesive messaging.
Yeah.
And I know this sounds like a little vague, but it depends on the mandate that the brand and the agencies have between them, what the scope of work states. So that's really where I would where I would say.
As you said the answer for that, I'm actually kind of getting a sense of what the ideal agency of tomorrow could be, right? And I think it's sort of like a extension of the marketing wing that controls the brand, right? And not necessarily the execution. If you kind of know what I mean, right? It should, like, they should be the guys who say, okay, is this on brand, as they say, and is this, meeting marketing? Arguably, you could say, okay, maybe that's the role of what the marketing team itself inside a company should be. So maybe that's another way of looking at it. I don't have an answer for that really, but I think like what you're saying right now makes absolute sense, right? I think the role of the agency or even the marketing team within, or the brand team rather, within the on the company side should be more towards, okay, is this in line with the brand that we have defined. And it's easier once you have that brand very well defined, right? I think that's the other thing. I think if we just take a step back, I don't think brands are very well defined in this day and age. Sure, there's a 50 slide deck that talks about brand onion pyramid, whatever the case may be, but I don't think that brands are actually that well defined in this day and age. And I think and what I mean by that is, and I come at this from a marketing critic perspective rather than a practitioner perspective. I think being a brand is as much about what you're not as much about what you are, in some sense. Like what Sriket said about agencies, in some ways, about telling the company what they don't need to do on digital as much as what it is they need to do. And I don't know, maybe that's a slightly different way of looking at it. But basically what I'm saying is, agencies, we can be brand custodians, right? And then everything else that happens around any communication that goes on, I'll just scratch all that I said. I'll just make it kind of simpler. Another person I interviewed recently, who's hopefully the article should be coming out today, was Shashank Mehta, who founded The Whole Truth, that brand of protein. And I think they are one of the few Indian brands that have come up very well of late. They have a great product, but the branding is so
very nice. Yeah.
And two things that he said, which I want to mention over here. One, he said, we have very clearly defined who we are as a brand. We are the anti-food advertising brand. And that shines through in all the communication. So beautifully defined, right? That just shows you who the hero is, who the villain is, articulated so beautifully. Ex-HUL guy, right? So he's got all those marketing chops with him. The second thing that he kind of said, which stuck with me, is I am absolutely paranoid about anything that goes out from the brand. Be it an email, be it the box that the stuff is delivered in, be it what's written on the box. So sure, the product has to stand on its own merit, absolutely. But that, I love that paranoia. How many brands have this sort of like I'm appalled that banks spend so much time obsessing about their social media when there are typos in their SMSs.
Yeah.
Like HDFC Bank still says you are, for example, in their communication. I don't know. I don't know why I went on to that little tangent over there, but I do think that somewhere that brand custodian is a role that agencies could possibly play in the future.
Let me just also try and approach this in a...
Brands do that to save money. Sure, yeah.
Let me see if I can approach this, the cohesive messaging from a slightly different angle rather than agency first. You can have cohesive messaging across largely two kinds of situations. A, when you're talking to multiple target groups, or you can have it when you're present across multiple touch points, which is increasingly the case. Now, when you're talking to multiple target groups and you find that you're saying something completely different, therefore your brand is getting diluted to some extent. It's just about making sure that, to what Chuck said, making sure that your brand has one message. And when you go slightly upstream, then you're able to see that I'm having the same conversation, but it just splinters of the same thing. I'm addressing very sharp needs of these different people, like what OnePlus did. If I'm creating content, then let me create content for musicians, let me create content for photographers and gamers. At the end of the day, I'm still a content creator backed by strong tech. That's one way to do it. The other way, which is absolutely fine. The other way to do it, which becomes problematic, when your cohesive messaging is across different touch points and none of them speak to each other. If one of the problems that we've been seeing also is traditional media pe aapka kuch chal raha hai and digital is completely different. There is no synergy with the brand. Now the consumers don't give a shit. If I see it on Instagram,
that's a great way of summing up a lot of marketing, right?
Yeah. If I see it on Instagram, it's the same as if I see it on print, on outdoor, and hear it on radio. The messaging there has to be cohesive. If that isn't the case, then that's a problem. That needs to be looked into both by agency and brand. I don't know which one should point it out first, because I think it's the mandate of both to make sure that cohesion takes place. That's a problem. The target group, I don't think, is a specific problem for doing it the way OnePlus is doing it.
Thinking through the entire consumer journey, and when I say consumer journey, I don't mean that classic model that agencies use, but every touch point. All right, what happens as a result of this? Okay, where is the consumer going to go from here? Right? I think all those things matter. For example, I've seen many banner ads, for example, that are built in one style, as in the language, the color, the layout, visual style, etc., says one thing. But when you click on it, because I'm one of those guys who click on ads just to, just to use them in slides clearly. I bump up the CTRs for everybody, and then you go to a web page that is like completely like look like it's created by somebody else. The language is different. That is, I mean, that's irrational, but irrationality drives branding in many ways, right? So
Mm.
that's clearly the guy who's created the banner ad and the guy who's created the website haven't spoken to each other. That whoever's owning this whole process hasn't seen it through completely. Once the purchase happens, is the email in sync with the, in terms of language, tone, and all that? Is it? So I think it's just about that. I think to be a good brand, one, yes, define the brand, but two, it's also about that. It's also about just like Aditi's question said, just think through the entire customer journey, or the journey of the customer in some sense. So if you are, for example, creating an email campaign, then okay, is the destination for that in sync with the email at least? Like you said on Instagram, for instance, is it, is it in sync with the customer's expectations of the brand, or whatever the case? I think that little bit of paranoia, I think absolutely helps, whether you
Helps.
are a brand
Yeah.
or even whether you are an individual. I think on that note, I think we should wrap up. Adi, what
Wrap
do you
up.
think? It's 12.
Yes, I agree. I think we have droned on for long enough.
Yeah, we have droned on for long enough. It's a good way of putting planning in perspective.
Yeah.
Going back to the topic, do you think we have answered it? The question, the thing that we were trying to answer was the role of digital for brands in this, or the changing role of digital for brands. To me, if I were to sum it up, I think it goes beyond marketing. I think brands or companies need to look at digital as more than just a shiny new toy that needs to, that can help them resonate with millennials and use hashtags and things. I think that's a very superficial way of looking at the power of what digital can do. And in fact, digital can help you drive new business processes in some way. It can help change things internally. Like if you just look at those Goodwinian levels that I spoke about, digital has a role to play in each one of them, I think. So rather than brands looking at digital, I would like to say, hey, from a company point of view, what role can digital play for you? And I think each of them will have a different, I think there's so much scope for things to happen. The last thing I would then say on that is, don't be beholden to platforms, be it digital platforms, be it traditional platforms. Be beholden to strategy and business objectives. I don't think those change, right? Sending targeted messages to audiences has always been a good marketing strategy. In the 1600s, they would send town criers, then they would do newspapers, they would send TV. Today, we use Facebook and Instagram targeting. Tomorrow, it could be something else altogether. Like Tom Cruise showed in Minority Report. It could be like a completely different interface altogether. So yeah, that's my signing off line.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think two things when you think of digital A is that we tend to fall into very structured or very what is called category thinking.
Yeah.
So when we look at digital, we're actually only looking at the things that we think can serve marketing, serve brands. Look at all the things that digital are doing. Read as much as you can, of course. But if somebody is doing something as cool as, an example way out there, but something as cool as Neuralink, Musk with the chip in his brain, are you really maxing digital the way you can by putting out posts? Think about the lay of the land. That's number one. So what is digital defined in your mind as really? And secondly, just building on what we've spoken of as well, is that your business objective and your marketing objective would be super clear. Nothing in today's marketing advertising world has any presence if it can't serve your numbers.
100%.
It has to serve your business. If it doesn't do that, it might as well not be there.
Little exercise then, just on that note, which was something that you said just reminded me, a little exercise. If anyone wants to do it, please don't submit it to us. We're not going to evaluate or something. I think a great place to look for digital inspiration is honestly beyond the category. There is this risk of, we are working on a financial brand, hence we must look at what other financial brands are doing. Yeah, sure, do that. But it's very likely your inspiration is not going to come from there, or the true idea is not going to come from there. I would honestly say, screw marketing. Look at spaces that you are extremely passionate about yourself. And you will find enough, because you are invested into yourself, you will know, okay, why does this kind of work? And how can I then transpose this what they are doing over here to the space that I'm working in. Trust me, if you try this approach, you can find inspiration from, say, football, which you can apply into real estate marketing, right? It's not about the tactics, it's about the strategy and what they do, right? I, for example, can take an entire presentation on marketing lessons that have been learned from rock music, for instance, or what bands and they have done. That's a nice topic. No, we should probably do something.
We should probably do something. I think there's like a nice intersection.
What would yours be? You seem like a football guy to me.
Me? Oh, not at all.
Not at all. You have the beard and the glasses. So
I have the beard and glasses.
I don't know. For some reason, you look like a football fan to me.
I'm actually not a sports person.
Okay.
What
would be yours?
Sorry?
What would be yours? Marketing lessons from X.
Marketing lessons from music.
From music. Let's do it. I think that should be our next session.
I think that should be our next session. I can already think of a couple of examples from different things.
I know at least 3 people who are currently over here who will be a part of that. I think that's great. I think we should do that. I already have a few examples, and it's something I actually have been thinking about putting out for a while. I've got so many examples. I think we should do that. Yeah, I hope
we should definitely do that. I can think of a couple off the top of my head too.
Excellent. Let's do this. All right, guys. I think we should finally draw this to a close. Thank you, guys, so much for sticking all the way through. The next session, I am not quite sure when we will do it, but possibly early March, maybe 6th or 13th. Should be a time that we do it again. Once a month is something we're thinking of. Honestly, we have no idea what we are going. Honestly, we have no idea how what's going to happen in these sessions, right? Could be we might get on some other people, we might do something, we might make it paid eventually and make this like a masterclass. Who knows? But let's just have a little bit of fun. I think this is good just to get a little bit of thinking and in touch with what's happening in the world. All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for the idea. Thanks for the questions, everything. Yeah. So.
And thank you everyone for the really nice questions that you sent in.
I'm sorry we couldn't answer all of them. Hopefully you got a sense of what you want, and we'll try to make sessions out of them rather than answer individual questions. So that's the idea of doing something like this. We have a bunch of things to plug, which we will send over email, but not to do that over here, newsletters and things like that. So yeah, see you guys soon. Thanks for joining in again, and see you sometime in early March, I guess.
Early March.
Yeah, bye.
Thanks so much, everyone. Bye-bye. Have a good day.
Bye, Adi.
Bye, Chalk.